When dieting, almost everybody struggles with the urge to overeat, but this can really become problematic when you can't stop yourself from overeating. When this starts to happen regularly, it becomes excessive and you just feel out of control. Now, this is close to my heart because I can definitely speak to this. I had long periods of my life where I did binge eat, and most of those were when I was trying to restrict or diet, and that's when this happens the most often. So today, I want to talk from personal experience about how to overcome the urge to binge and just how to prevent binging in general. So the first thing is you want to try to be as flexible as possible. Studies show that those people who have a rigid mentality when it comes to dieting and food in general tend to overeat more often. These are the people who struggle with binge eating. If you're more flexible with your ideas toward food and how you treat yourself, you're going to fare a lot better when it comes to binging. Now for myself, I know what really led to those binging struggles was restriction. I had this idea in my head that some foods were good, some foods were bad. Now this came from a traditional background of bodybuilding, where you have like those 8 to 10 foods that are okay to eat, including high-fat foods like peanut butter and almonds, but then having wheat bread in general, that's not okay. It's just that mentality that you can have some things and you can't have others. So that caused me to crave the things that I couldn't have. It's like a little kid. If you tell them that you can't have a toy, automatically they want that toy. It doesn't matter that before they paid no attention to it at all. Now all of a sudden they're so fixated on it, they just have to have it. That's how it is with food. When you're dieting, you tend to always be thinking about food. And if you're restricting to certain types, you're always thinking about the types that you can't have. Now the problem with this is that you fall into that Last Supper mentality where you finally get your hands on that food that's bad that you couldn't have, and then now that you've already had it, you end up feeling really guilty and you're like, I just blew my whole diet, so I might as well keep going. I've been bad, so I'm going to enjoy it. And that's when you really fall off the wagon, and then you're punishing yourself and you have trouble getting back on. That's where these extreme binges happen. That's what always happened to me. So the key here, guys, is that you have to adopt a flexible mindset when it comes to food. The second thing is you should really limit the duration of your diet. Now, willpower, motivation, these are things that are not unlimited. Eventually, you're gonna get burnt out. If you're on a diet for long enough, you're gonna get hungry. And the hungrier you get, the more likely you are to overeat. So there are some ways that you can kind of control some of that hunger with the types of foods you eat, and refeeds and stuff that we'll talk about here coming up. But it's important to understand that dieting should be something short term. You don't want to be one of those people who diets for months and years on end. That's when you really start craving the food. Instead, you might want to program diet breaks in times where you bump your calories back up to maintenance for a couple weeks, and then you dive back into fat loss. Now, as far as the Avatar system goes, we don't yet have that option, but it is something we're planning on incorporating in the future. And in the meantime, if you want to reach out to one of our coaches, if you feel like you want to try to incorporate diet breaks, they can go in on the back end and bump those calories up for you and then help you understand how far to drop them when you do go back into the dieting phase. So again, the point here is that it should be limited in duration. You should have a plan for your fat loss. You shouldn't just keep dieting forever. Number 3, you need to use your refeeds wisely. Refeeds are awesome because they give you a psychological break from dieting. It can be super, super hard to be in a calorie deficit for days on end. That can really cause you to start craving foods. You get really hungry, and then you're more susceptible to that binge. But if you plan a day or two in the week where you know you're going to have higher calories, then you can fit the foods that you love in on those days. Like I said, willpower is limited, but if you have something to look forward to on a day that you know you're not going to be in a calorie deficit and you're going to have all your needs met and you're finally going to feel full, that can be super powerful in helping you stick to your diet. And the fourth thing is, sometimes it's good to go bro. Now I talked a little bit before about how going bro, meaning eating super clean foods like a bodybuilding style, could be a bad thing if you have the good and bad food mentality, but we're not talking about good or bad food mentality here. We're just saying that some bro foods tend to be really filling. These are things like oats, sweet potatoes. They're high in fiber, they're high in water, so they're going to tend to fill you up a little bit more. Also, turning to things like salads, broccoli, other types of vegetables, high in water content, fiber, lots of volume. You're going to end up overeating less if you're not feeling that same stimulus to eat. And then, of course, you have your lean meats like your chicken, your egg whites, shrimp, stuff like that. Protein is going to be super filling, and it's going to leave more room to get fats from other places, the things that you're really craving. So all of this is going to help you stick to your macros and just feel more satisfied in general, and all of that makes you less likely to binge. Now, something else you're going to want to avoid is mindless eating. Now, who hasn't engaged in this, right? You come home from a long work day, you just want to reward yourself, you don't want to think, you turn on the TV, you put your feet up, you have a bag of popcorn. Next thing you know, you didn't even taste it, but you inhaled the whole thing. Like it's all gone and you don't even remember eating it. Now this can be such a problem because it's so easy to overeat if you're not enjoying the taste of every bite you're eating and you're not aware of what you're eating. So the key here is maybe to try to do things like eat with your family, somewhere where you're not mindlessly sitting in front of the TV, where it's a little bit easier to pay attention to every bite you eat and kind of savoring the taste of that and just being completely aware and in the moment. And finally, and this might be the most important thing, is realize that there's always tomorrow. Like, this isn't the last day you're going to get to have a treat. I talked a little bit before when I was talking about that flexible mindset, about that Last Supper mentality, where you feel like it's the last supper you're going to get to have. And so you might as well just enjoy it because you've been bad, you fell off your plan, so let's just get it out of our system and eat everything right then and there. If you realize there's tomorrow, you won't fall victim to this mindset, because you know that you can have a little bit of those good tasting things every day. You just shouldn't have them all today, right? Now, that being said, if you do mess up, realizing that there's always tomorrow allows you to be able to do kind of a calorie exchange and substitute some of those calories to tomorrow. So remember, what's important is the average of your calories throughout the week. So if I go over a little bit today, I had a bad day, the Girl Scouts came and they sold me some cookies and I overate, I can definitely make up for that tomorrow by eating a little bit less. Now, something that I think is totally revolutionary that we are implementing into the Avatar system is this concept of moving targets, where based on the food you're logging and tracking in our tracker, you can turn these moving targets on where it will actually recommend what macros you should eat the next day in order to stay within that compliant range. So we're trying to make things as easy on you as possible and really kind of squelch this whole mindset of rigidity and, I can never overeat even a little bit. Because when you have that mentality and you're craving foods and you think of things in black and white, I can't do this, you're more likely to fall off the edge and do those things. So we really want to soften things up. It's called flexible dieting for a reason, right? So let's be flexible, and those are the ways that you can avoid binging.